Welcome, everybody. My name is Michael, and if you remember, there was Three Arrows Capital. That, alongside a couple other companies, was the big news right before a giant crash in the market. And we were in that slump for a while. Well, Sun Zhu was arrested in Singapore, and he was sentenced to, I think it was 4 or 5 months in prison. However, his partner, one of the three partners, altogether there's three of them, one of them was Davies, and he was a co-founder, an executive. Yes, a $3.5 billion scheme, a scam, a failed cryptocurrency project, or as he likes to call it, a bankrupt project. It is what it is. Has zero remorse. He has never been captured. He's currently on the run. He has not revealed exactly where he is, but some people believe he might be in Portugal or other parts of Europe, and he wouldn't be the first person to escape from Asia over cryptocurrency-related matters and was found in Europe. But in terms of his whole on-the-run thing, well, usually if you are potentially a criminal, allegedly, you don't go on podcasts, don't follow in terms of Sam Bankman-Fried's path where you're going to be contacting journalists and expressing your thoughts because, well, it's going to enrage people, and you don't want to enrage the wrong person, aka a judge. But he appeared on Unchained, the podcast, and he claimed he's not sorry for losing investors' money. Every company goes bankrupt. That's the reason. Am I sorry for a company going bankrupt? No. Like companies go bankrupt, almost every company goes bankrupt, right? He very brazenly said that, and he smiled. He had a big grin, and at that point, there weren't a lot of pleased people listening to that. It's how you build or what you do about it. We're definitely trying our best. We can add value in various ways. At a minimum, we could even tell the next Three Arrows how to do things better when they go bankrupt. Okay, so crypto hedge fund co-founder ran off with a bunch of money. He renounced his U.S. citizenship because he was like, screw that. Similar to, when he was in Singapore, similar to one of the Facebook co-founders, also similar amounts. That guy, he renounced his U.S. citizenship because he didn't want to get taxed on $600 million. Well, this guy is probably sitting also on hundreds of millions of dollars because, hey, $3.5 billion vanished somewhere, but he's not poor, that's for sure. He's making money, and he doesn't care. And now cryptocurrency went up, and probably most of his money was in crypto, so it's certainly possible that he made a lot of money this past bull run, and he's probably due to make a lot more. But he does not care. Three Arrows Capital started in 2012, and over time they secured billions of dollars from investors. They captured at its peak $18 billion in crypto assets under management. Now, they did see a lot of heavy losses because of Terra, and that was also Terra. The co-founder of that was found in Europe and arrested. So kind of interesting how paths can cross, I guess. A lot of large investments in Luna and Terra didn't go well, so the company went bankrupt. And it was revealed that the hedge fund owed a lot of money, $3.5 billion. And on top of that, they borrowed money from over 20 institutions, and that the firm owed billions of dollars, not only to investors, but to institutions as well. And other institutions went bankrupt because of Three Arrows Capital and Luna, and that collapsed the entire market. Three Arrows Capital was ordered to liquidate by a court in the British Virgin Islands, and then Singapore courts and America to repay investors. However, Mr. Davies fled, and Mr. Zhu fled. Mr. Zhu was arrested. He was arrested at the airport, Changi Airport in Singapore in September. He sentenced 4 months in prison. He failed to coordinate with liquidators. Mr. Davies, though, he didn't care. Davies missed the sentence, and it was a big surprise to both him and Zhu. Davies missed the court date. He said it was a big surprise. This sentencing, both to him and Zhu, they were shocked. Why would they be under arrest? And I can see from their perspective at the time, since technically what they did wasn't legal per se. I mean, back then things worked a little differently. Now 100% it's a crime, but back then I could see, Wild West days, there was a lot of ICO projects where people didn't go to jail. I get it. There was a lot of victims. it is what it is, crypto Wild West. But they did commit further crimes by, hey, you were doing court and you just decided to skip it. Well, then Interpol and, all these international agencies get involved. Obviously, if we had not intended to go to the court day, you wouldn't be in Singapore, right? But Mr. Zhu was in Singapore, Davies said. Given that there was a court date, you would go. Otherwise, you'd be in contempt of court. Davies, who is wanted in Singapore and faces the same sentence as his partner, which is 4 months, he said he has no plans to return to the country immediately, but would consider it if the contempt order was dropped. Obviously, these things just resolve at some point. There are settlements. Those are kinds of tactics. So I've learned at the end of the day, all these things resolve. Davies gained Singapore citizenship when he renounced his U.S. citizenship. He was asked on the podcast whether he should fire his lawyers. And he's like, well, because they didn't, allegedly, they weren't informed about the court date, maybe we should. Maybe that's a good idea. So in an interview with another magazine in February, which, by the way, again, even if it's a small charge, it's still 4 months in prison and you're still being chased halfway around the world. I would not be going to all of these magazines and articles and journalists and videos and podcasts and flashing my face and, hey, this is what I'm doing. These are my thoughts, but you do you. He claimed to be in Europe, but he did not confirm whether he was staying in Portugal. He was then asked if he would want to return to America to see his family. He said he had no reason to believe he would face repercussions for doing so, but is not. However, he may. You never know. I mean, first off, he's not a citizen. He's not a citizen anymore, so it might be difficult. Even if he doesn't face any consequences, it might be difficult for him just to be back in the country. But you never know. Davies also started to speak about his new startup that also failed after Three Arrows Capital. It was OPNX. He launched it in Dubai in April 2023. And it did not last even a full year because it's not April 2024. We're close, but Dubai's crypto regulator formally reprimanded OPNX for operating an unregulated exchange months after its launch. The exchange was shut down 10 months later in February. The failure of both Three Arrows Capital and OPNX came around the same time as the fall of FTX. Woohoo! And there was a bunch of other exchanges that also fell down and other Ponzi schemes. Woo, there was a lot going on. And not just in cryptocurrency as well. There was a lot of larger Ponzi schemes. Now working in the banking industry, I'm always curious because whenever I have applied to a bunch of banks, I did get accepted. And the current bank that I'm at, you're always curious. What are the lawsuits? And my bank, there was a large multi-billion-dollar settlement for support of a Ponzi scheme. Now, the bank didn't know. It is what it is. But every single bank, there's always these multi-billion-dollar settlements for anything from Ponzi schemes to fraud to money laundering to, just your usual stuff. And every single bank in America has these giant ones. Previous one I was at, there was some discrimination lawsuit that was a bunch of money. It was the largest one for its kind ever. It was like $400 million. I mean, there was just a bunch of interesting things. So whenever I see stuff like this, it's always fun to do the research. So SBF, we will find out his sentencing pretty soon because, well, it's less than a week away now. Changpeng Cao is scheduled for April 30th, so that's next month. He pleaded guilty to anti-money laundering violations in November. He could be facing a year and a half in prison. He was forced to step down as the CEO of Binance. Now, what was interesting was SBF also talked with New York Magazine. This was back in 2022, and he was quoted saying, "I suspect they might be 80% of the total original contagion." And this was directly blaming Davies and Zhu's Three Arrow Capital for the 2022 crypto collapse. They weren't the only people who blew out, but they did it way bigger than anyone else did, and they had way more trust from the ecosystem prior to that. And then FTX blew out, and they blew out even bigger. Obviously, I mean, he's facing 110 years in prison. He's probably going to get anywhere from 20 to 40 to 50, whatever it is. But that'd be nice. If you're comparing both situations, I'd rather be in the situation where, hey, I'm on the run, and I'm also facing a maximum of like 4 or 5 months in prison. Now, what they are worried about, and in the case of Terra Luna and all that, is once you do get arrested, what about other charges from other countries? Once you're in prison, it's kind of tough, and something that could be 4 months suddenly turns into years, suddenly turns into 5 years, and but at least it's not your whole entire life behind bars. So this brings us to the end of this story, and what would it be the end without Mr. Do Kwon himself, the originator of all of this? Three Arrows Capital is nothing compared to Do Kwon's Terra Luna disaster. A $40 billion, some estimates are at $60 billion, a $40 to $60 billion collapse. So even worse than FTX, which was at its peak. It was a $11 billion collapse, but at its peak, $32 billion. So this is even worse. And this was what brought everything on. He escaped to Montenegro, and he was arrested in Montenegro. And what for? Well, the charge was using a fake passport. He tried using Costa Rican passports to depart for Dubai. That did not work out, and he has been fighting extradition since. Well, it's really the Montenegrin prosecutor who's been fighting, because there's dual extraditions. There's South Korea and the United States of America that are fighting, and in Do Kwon's case, similar to FTX, he probably would prefer to be shipped off to South Korea. I know I would, because getting shipped off over here, you're going to be facing similar charges to Mr. SBF himself. So it's not looking so hot, but it's a 50-50. He might be going back to South Korea. He might not be, but he's facing some time behind bars. That's for sure. He's facing also 8 charges. It's not just like, 1 or 2 charges. No, they're going to throw the book at him. So we'll see. But he's still in Montenegro. So, kind of interesting. But that saga will end soon too. So all of these sentencings right around the same time. This year is really a crazy year. Hey, Bitcoin halving is just 3.5 or close to, 3.5, 4-ish weeks away now. Very exciting. Thanks for watching today's video. So, beautiful day. And checking this out, we have a brand new restaurant, still not open, will be open in April. And that's right next to these apartments, which I think some of them are open, but most are not. This is crazy. And right across the street over there, those are open. They have been for a little bit. But when I moved out to Poland, all of this, that didn't exist. All of this was grass. It literally, you had a bunch of trees over there and forests similar to those trees behind. And you had all these restaurants and shopping centers. And I don't know if you can see it, but that giant apartment building that's sort of behind, there we go, that one also didn't exist. And these are like the luxury apartments, where some of these apartments, this is in the town where I sold a lot of cars. And these apartments, some of them are, starting $2,000 and go all the way up to $5,000, and they're company sponsored, and you usually have a lot of high level positions, maybe executives, or maybe engineers or lawyers, or I don't know, and programmers, top senior programmers, scientists. You have these crazy jobs where most of these people are immigrants, and they're on special visas, and they're sponsored by the company, and the companies are paying for them. And that's why there's a lot of these apartment buildings right next to the corporate parks that are super, super nearby. Some of them are further that way beyond the trees. There's more that way. There's pharmaceutical companies. There's laser companies, microchip processing companies, like these crazy, amazing companies where they pay great money, like $200,000, $300,000 on top of the benefits. And you're going to get more and more of these apartments, which are a little cookie cutter, but I kind of like it. It's a little interesting. They really redid everything. That used to be a Denny's, and that still is not open, as you can see by the hiring soon signs. And then here's my favorite part. Like, this is where it goes full out over here. These are also luxury apartments. Look at that. Oh, wow. That bridge over there, that's awesome. Now, these are certainly not cheap, but they did take a part of the mall that was here. They did take part of that down, so it still extends further. And then there is a point where you can actually see the mall that kind of extends all the way out over there. Well, this parking lot that's kind of blocked off, they redid everything. So the mall, well, it's not as popular. By the way, this restaurant, like all the restaurants nearby, it's probably amazing for the owners. Like, hey, we just had a bunch of residents pull up over here. So I just wanted to share something with you. You know, it's, I grew up around these parts, and it's very interesting to see how everything has been developed and how quickly, within a matter of a year, these apartments, boom. I mean, I don't know how many there are, whether it's like 500 apartments or 1,000 or whatnot, but it's crazy. These are giant complexes that have just kind of seemingly appeared out of nowhere. And it's kind of interesting because you go further that way and there's more apartments. And I mean, every single way you're going, it gives me like this weird feeling. Like, I remember when I was a kid, and now I'm kind of an adult. I'm 26, and you know, it makes me realize that when I'm 50 years old and I have kids and whatnot, I mean, that's going to be insane. 26 years from now, this is going to extend way further. There's going to be so much more. There's going to be probably less trees and you know, the good stuff. But it is very interesting. Who knows? Might go to Poland and then come back and another 5 more miles of this. And I like it to an extent, but there's also the negatives where, unfortunately, housing prices are very expensive right now. And this is an expensive neighborhood generally, but it has become a lot more expensive. And inflation is skyrocketing in these very high cost of living parts of Chicago. And unfortunately, it priced me out. You know, I can't afford to live around here. It's where I grew up as a kid. And unfortunately, you know, it is what it is. I have to move out further, and I miss these parts. I really do. Now I work nearby, so it's, and I used to work nearby as well. So it's kind of nostalgia, my same route that I used to take to the dealerships. But it is, I don't know. Just wanted to share it with you. Let me know what your thoughts are, and hopefully you enjoyed the previous content of the video. Thanks so much. And if you did, please consider subscribing. This channel is growing. The other channel is growing as well. We need more subscribers on Volvo Car Sales. So if you're interested in cars, don't really do car sales anymore, but still have some old videos, and we will be discussing further in depth for vehicles. So hopefully in the future, when I'm rich, I can talk about Rolls Royces and Mercedes. But until then, you know, normal cars. Consider checking it out. Thanks so much. Have a good one. Take care.